There, yep, we're live. We're good to go. So hi guys, Angie Wells here, founder of Equine Essential Wellness, getting ready to come live with you and share a special featured guest, a friend of mine, Anna Collis from Australia. She's the founder of Harmony for Horses. So as you come on, feel free to say hello. I am going to be opening it up for questions for Anna towards the end of our talk. So if you have questions for Anna that you want to ask, please feel free to do so. I'll go ahead and let you know when you can. You can post them whenever, but if you want to post them towards the end of the video, it'll be easier for me to find them. But for those who don't know me, you probably do know me, but I'm Angie Wells, the founder of Equine Essential Wellness. And my vision and passion is to empower you with the information you need to get your horse looking and feeling their best. And another vision of mine is connecting and collaborating with other amazing horse owners and professionals, much like Anna. So as I shared, Anna is she is the founder of Harmony for Horses, and she's a lifelong animal and horse enthusiast whose passion has led her to becoming not only a equine, but also a human massage therapist. She's an acupuncturist, as well as taking a deep dive into the emotion code, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about today, and utilizing it effectively for horses. And I've seen this firsthand on my Mustangs, which has been so exciting. So Anna has a natural gift for seeing the connections of negative behavioral patterns and the physical and emotional pain that's behind them. So that's just my introduction of Anna. So Anna, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on. And if you'll just share with everyone an introduction of, whatever you want to share about who you are and how you found the work of the emotion code.
Hi everybody, I'm Anna Collis. I'm the founder of Harmony for Horses. I live in Queensland, Australia, and like Angie said, I am a equine and a human body worker. I started to become a body worker quite some time ago after being a pony club instructor for 10 years when my children were young. And during that time, I got a real passion for trying to help horses that were labelled as bad horses. So many horses came through that got a bad name, and they were just labelled bad because they wouldn't do what they were supposed to be doing. They weren't doing the right thing during training. So I got a real passion for trying to help them, because I didn't really believe that any horses were a bad horse. They never went out of their way to just try and do the wrong thing by us. There was always a reason, I believe, behind it. So I went down the path of thinking that it was a pain-related problem, and that's why they couldn't do the training that they were asked. So I trained as a body worker, an acupuncturist, and along the way, I had a lot of success doing that, helping horses, but there was also a large majority that I couldn't help because the problems I felt were emotional and behavioural, that had been caused by a lot of stuff. I mean, we have a lot of thoroughbreds here that have come off the track and things like that. For a while there, I felt a little bit disheartened that I couldn't help those horses, and just felt that there was some horses that I just couldn't help, no matter what training they had, what body work they had. But then a couple of years ago, I came across the emotion code, and I trained as an emotion code practitioner, which is a people therapy. But then I started to case study it with horses with some amazing results. And just as soon as I started, I didn't know whether it would work, if it would have any results for horses. But as soon as I started doing it, we had some amazing results with horses. Horses that's behavior totally changed. Horses that wouldn't gain weight gained weight. Just a multitude of things that was just sometimes after one session. And at the start, I didn't even really know what I was doing. So some of the results were amazing. So that's how I kind of got down that path. When I started doing that, I just got really passionate about it, and, being able to help horses in that way. So that's kind of how I found it. And it's just kind of all been continuing on since then.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I can resonate with that. And you guys can let us know in the comments if you guys kind of resonate with that understanding that, horses don't know how to be bad. If they're doing something wrong, it's because they were either unintentionally trained to do so, where they were rewarded for the wrong behavior, or there's something behind it. So I can see you guys coming on. I just want to give a couple hellos. Hi, Eileen. Hi, Jenna, Lynn, and Jen. It's great to see all of you. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Cindy. It's great to have you guys on. So I'll let you guys kind of put in the comments below, you know, if you've seen that in your personal horses, if you kind of resonate with that concept. I'm curious, Anna, what have you, like, what common misunderstandings or myths about horses and emotions have you experienced as you've been working with horses and their owners, of course? What have you kind of noticed that there are misunderstandings or things that maybe horse owners don't realize as you go to work with the horse's emotions?
I think the first thing that came up when I started doing this was there were people that actually didn't believe that horses felt the same emotions as us. So that was something that came up. People that thought that we were putting our own emotions and how we would feel onto our horses. But when I first heard that, I never thought that people thought that way. So that was kind of a bit of a shock to me. So I did go and look into that a bit deeper to see if there was actually research into it. And there is some scientific research out there that does show that horses as mammals feel a lot of similar emotions to us, the same as all mammals do. You know, we're all very similar. They may not have every emotion that we have, but the majority of emotions are felt by mammals, you know, all of us across the board. So that was one thing I came up across a lot. You know, was people thinking that horses don't have trauma and they don't have those same emotions. So that was definitely one thing that I came up across. Yeah, and probably the main thing, I think, and also coming across about, you know, talking to people about that bad behavior thing, you know, where people still believe sometimes that the horse is doing things on purpose, you know, and trying to punish horses in the same way that we might for our, you know, for ourselves. And, you know, they don't have that same, like they live in the now more. They don't know what we're doing to them now, you know, related to what happened 10 minutes ago, that type of thing. So yeah, probably those are the biggest things.
Right. And I agree with that. I see a lot of the same thing when I go to do any of the emotional work I know how to do, is that the owner's like emotional side of my horse, you know, especially if you're working, it seems like, especially with performance horses or horses that are being used for work, quote unquote, it's a little hard for them to bring that emotional aspect in about the stress that the horse is under, the nervous, the anxiety, the things that they can experience. It's going to impact them as well. And when I think of people not thinking horses experience that, I saw a video, curious if you guys have seen this one going around Facebook, where there was a herd of wild horses and a mare had lost a foal. And they show a video of the herd kind of gathering close to the mare and foal. And it was like, it literally was like a grieving session. It made me bawl when I saw it. And it was just a true, like, proof, like, here are these wild horses that they have these kind of emotions. So yes, they may not have the same reasoning as we do or the exact expression, but they have emotion. It can get trapped, it can get stuck, and clearing it is such an important thing for their health, for their behavior, for all of that. So with that in mind, and I was curious if you had one horse, I'm sure there's many over the years, but one horse or one story that particularly stands out to you that maybe it was like just so profound, the shift in the horse, that maybe you could share to give insight to people on the true impact that clearing emotions can have for horses.
There's a few that come to mind. So there was a horse named Brandy, who was one of my case studies when I first started. So at that time, we didn't know what results we would get with the emotion code. And I had a client who's got a big agistment, and she also bought and trained and sold on horses. So she had a lot of horses coming in, a lot of horses with different issues, you know, especially through coming from the sale, some of them for training and getting sold on. So I actually asked her if I could come out and case study some of her horses, and she does tell me now that she thought I was a little bit crazy at the time, coming in like with my pendulum and, you know, doing this emotion coding work. But we had some crazy results. And Brandy, who I've put into one of the modules, she always stands out for me because she was one of the first horses that I did, and she had such a massive shift. Like, I think in 2 sessions we did with her, and she was actually one of the owner, the client, it was actually one of her personal horses that she'd had for 2 years, and it was a mare that had come off the track, and it had a whole host of problems. It had anxiety, it wouldn't float, it wouldn't gain weight. It was a weaver, used to windsuck. It just, it's just so much, and she just couldn't put any weight on it, couldn't and she was very hard to train. And after 2 sections, she calmed right down. I think she started float loading straight away. And she just became much less anxious in the paddock. But over the next couple of months, she looked like a totally different horse because she gained weight, she changed colour, the whole condition of her was totally different. She just looked so different. So she always stands out in my mind because she was one of the first ones where I kind of went, wow, this work actually really does work. And I did a number of horses for her through there before I actually decided to go and do the practitioner certificate. But it was after doing those horses for her that I was like, wow, I really have to do this. But there have been some other ones as well along the way. And I think the ones that stand out the most are the ones that are unexpected for people. So I've had a couple of clients, because I've been a body worker around here for a while. I've got a number of clients who just call me out to do body work and may not have any belief in the emotional side or the emotional work. But I was not that long ago at a client's house, and as I was treating the horse and we were just doing body work, she was telling me about this separation anxiety that this horse had. It was a mare, and she'd come from the sales, but she'd been with her for a year or so, I think. But every time she went to go and ride her down the street, she had really bad separation anxiety, would call out for the other horses, and she'd rear and spin and try and run home. So she never felt safe trying to take her away for a ride on her own. So while I was doing the body work, I just said, is it okay if I do some emotion coding? And I explained what it was, and we did a session. And I could see they didn't really understand what I was doing, and they were very skeptical about it, and it all seemed very, a bit out there and a bit woo. But anyway, I got a message from her a week later saying, I've got no idea what you did, but I went to go and ride my horse down the street yesterday, and she was totally fine, no anxiety. I ended up riding her bareback in a halter without any issues. So she was like, I don't know what you did, but anyway, it was great. And since that, she's recommended me to everyone she knows with a horse with separation anxiety. And I think those ones are really great because they don't expect there to be a result. Right. They don't have any belief in it, but the results just speak for themselves.
Right. I love that. And I've had that with a few horse owners I've worked with where they'll implement a lot of what I teach with the diet and everything else, but there's just this underlying thing that goes on. And then I go out and do some work and clear some emotion. And, I'm always thankful when they trust me enough to come do that sort of work. But I've had so many that are always like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you did, but something released, something is different. And then they start to open their mind to this emotional side. So You mentioned separation anxiety. I'm curious if you'll share, because of course I've heard it because I've also listened to your podcast, which was awesome. But what other aspects for those that are on here, what other kind of emotions? Because I know a lot of people that when I'm working with them, they'll be like, oh, my horse doesn't have an emotional issues to clear, or I don't know if they have emotional issues to clear. But what are some really common ones for people who maybe the horse doesn't have a traumatic past, but I think people have a misconception that a horse doesn't have emotions to clear from the past. So what are some common ones that you could share that might shed light for horse owners to realize, hey, my horse might have some emotion I need to clear?
I think there are some really common ones, and I think across the board, because of just how we in the horse world have just over time, done things structurally. Like I think early weaning, that is a really big one. And a lot of stuff I didn't actually realize myself until I started doing this emotion coding, and we started putting the ages to what was happening with those horses at the time. And so much comes up for horses around early weaning, a lot of anxiety. And I do believe that the horses with separation anxiety, a lot of them that I've treated, it all goes back to to weaning sometimes, because really naturally horses in the wild would wean themselves off. They wouldn't have that weaning maybe at 5 or 6 months old, like and totally separated from the mothers. I mean, I don't have any foals, so I don't really know how it's done, but I know in Australia particularly, we might take the foal off the mother at 6 months and put them somewhere so they totally can't see the mother and all that type of thing. And that's just how it's done. It's not really questioned. It's just that's the norm. But through doing the emotion coding, I have found that that's the start of a lot of anxiety. Even ulcers can start forming at that time through that anxiety. So that's definitely one thing. And training methods is another. So much comes up around the time of training and breaking in horses, if it's done in a way that is not suitable for that particular horse. So there are a couple of things that come up. So I know, we might not think our horses have trauma, but small things can still be traumatic for our horses. So it doesn't have to be something massive like our horse has been at the rescue, or it's had a big accident or something like that. It can be very small things like just being sent to the trainers and being frightened, or being in a situation that's uncomfortable and they can't move their feet to get away, and that trauma is then stored in the body. So it can be a number of things. It doesn't have to be something that we can actually say is a massive trauma. The same for ourselves. If we think of trauma for ourselves, we think, unless we've had a near-death experience or, something massive, then we don't have trauma. But there's so many small things, even as a child, that can be stored in us and cause patterns in us as an adult, because it was actually quite frightening or scary for us when we were younger. So so trauma doesn't have to be a big trauma.
Yeah, I think that's important to bring up. And I'm someone, for those who don't know personally, I tend to share on a lot of my content that I struggle, not as much anymore, but I used to have severe panic attacks and a lot of fear and anxiety. And one thing I know, like as I grew up, or even with my son, because he has experienced a lot of the same, a lot of times we do this with our horses too, where we try to tell them there's no reason to be afraid. We're just like, oh, you're fine. Like it's just a trailer, or it's just this, or it's just that. But to the horse, it's not. And for me, like when I would have my panic attacks, no one could convince me there was nothing to be afraid of. And so it's important to understand, if the horse perceives that there is something that's dangerous, they're going to perceive that no matter what you're calming or working them through. So it's those sort of things that can get trapped within the body. And, so it's just good to bring that to light, because there's so many times that even with my Mustangs, like I see how they handle the world so much differently than like my domestic horses. I took Lonan out for a walk on the road, and he was really sniffing the pavement and running his nose on it. And he pawed a little while, like he was really perplexed about the road. And it was like, he just checks everything out and he looks at the world so differently. And I just have to be patient and allow him to explore that and understand when he panics at strange things. And but all of that can store if they don't process that properly. So I think that is great. Is there anything, I see some questions coming through, but is there anything else specifically that you want to share?
I'm good. I think if anyone's got any questions to ask,
okay,
that's perfect. If we haven't explained anything properly, or
perfect. So you guys can go ahead and start putting your questions in. I know there's a slight delay usually between Zoom and the comments, so I'm going to let you start entering your questions in. But I do want you guys to know that if you're not already on Anna's Facebook page, I'm going to get that in the comments for you to get over to her page, so that you have her as, right there at your fingertips, that you can reach out and get help from. But and it's Harmony for Horses with Anna Collis, but I'll get the link in the comments so you guys can head over there. But I want to see what kind of questions we've got coming in. So Nicole is asking, can you talk about how the distance clearing works? That's a good question. I kind of wondered that myself.
It is a good question. And it is a hard one to understand. Obviously, even myself, when you think about doing something distance, you're like, well, how can that possibly work? So I really went in and just had a look at quantum physics. And if you go in and just have a little bit of a read about energy and how we're all connected by energy, and really there is no time different, time distance. It's all very hard to really, get your head around until you can read it and really research. But it's basically about energy. Like, we're all energy. We're even, like, if you think about, this is how I explain it to my mum a little bit, because she's got no clue. Like, she's always like, I just don't understand how it works. But if you think about even how I'm talking to you now, Angie, like, how is that happening? There's some energy waves going on, like, in the sky, that's connecting you and me, and it's like that energetically. So I've got my own energetic vibration around me. So does everything else in my environment. So do you and everything else over there. So it's basically being able to connect ourselves a little bit like a Wi-Fi over distance. Yeah, there is a better scientific version than my own explanation through quantum physics. But yeah, that's basically how it works. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it does. I think that's a good, and there are some of us, and I'm not willing to accept, like, a lot of people will say they're not intuitive at all, or they don't have these abilities. I think that we all have them. It's just some of us are more sensitive.
Yes.
But for those of us that are sensitive, like, I've never felt like it's like that woo-woo of a thing. And like Anna just shared a perfect example. Like, we don't know how our cell phones work. We don't know how our radios, we get that it's on frequency, but as people, we just don't think about it. And yet we have something like this where it's like, how does that work? And what I encourage people to do is think about the Mustangs out in the wild. They can be, as a herd, spread pretty far out. And yet they all, you can watch them synchronize, like if their heads all come up at the same time, or if they all take off running at the same time. If you think about, again, it's a distance and an energy. Now, you may be thinking, oh, well, they're all relatively close, but that same thing travels very far. Same thing with those of you who maybe have worked with animal communication. I know that may be out there for some of you. I know at one point for me it was, but it's all on an energetic level, and it's how we connect. And really, it's how the animals already connect. The only beings that have a little hard time with it is us. And I think a lot of you have probably had this come up in your life where, if let me know in the comments if you've ever had it where you started thinking about someone and suddenly they called you, or you called someone and they said that, like, I was just thinking about you. This is so crazy. I have that happen to me all the time. Or I'll send a message to someone and they're like, this is so weird. I was just thinking about you. I can't believe you messaged me today. So there's a lot of that, I think, that happens. We've just, as a society, we've kind of learned to, like, drum that and quiet it down. And for people like Anna and for myself, we really focus on growing that in ourselves, so it comes really natural to us. But I also believe this is something that everyone can start to tune into. And once you start to work it, almost like a muscle, the more you work it and listen to it, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to do the same. So Nicole, if you have any other questions on that, feel free to post them.
And there are some little studies as well. Like, I know there's a doctor called, I think his name's Dr. Sheldrake off the top of my head, but he did a lot on energetic resonance. And he wrote a book firstly that's called The Dog That Knows Its Owner's Coming Home, or something like that. So they're saying we're all energetically connected. It's particularly animals around us. And I don't know if any of you have dogs or cats that your partners will tell you when they're, when you get home, that your cat or dog has been waiting by the door for half an hour. Just knowing that you're coming home, and it doesn't have to be the same time every day. There's just some energetic connection, that animals have to us, that, like you said, Angie, we're so much in our heads sometimes that we don't feel it. Yeah. But there are a number of books out there written about it now. So.
Right. Yeah. So whether you are more of the scientific type, like, to be honest, when I get into quantum physics, my head spins. So I do better to start, like, just noticing it in animals. I'm like, yeah, see, the animals do it. And then I think of things in my life that have come up for me. But yeah, there's definitely, if you start looking into the science, I was trying to think of what the book was. I'll have to look. And I know, Nicole, that I mentioned this book, The Body Electric, where it talks about our bodies just as being, yes, energy and electricity. And I think the more that we understand that our body is that, the less weird it seems that we can communicate and connect energetically. I don't see any other questions, so you must have done just an amazing job sharing. I did see that Tracy shares emotions are huge. As a body worker and energy healer like you, Anna, I'm sure you've found that you can't fix the physical without the emotional. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And if you talk about it in that way, I do really believe that how we think comes out how we talk, and all of that creates energy around us, and it will eventually store in our body if we keep it repressed like that, and become disease, illness, pain. And I see that a lot, even with my human, probably more with my human clients who come in time and time again with the same problems. Yeah, and it is usually an emotional thing that's storing in their body. Yeah, so without the emotional, you can't really long-term fix it. And that's how the emotion code came about as well, because it is a method by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who's a human chiropractor. So that's what he found, was that his clients would come back all the time with something similar. He'd fix it and they go away, come back with the same. And he realized that really without fixing the emotions, you couldn't fix the physical and skeletal problems. So yeah, definitely.
I love that. And Anna actually had a post on her page, I think it was yesterday, and I loved it, where it was like you had an image of a bunch of kind of negative words. And I think it's really important for horse owners to understand that their thoughts and their words about their horse are very important. That's another connection I think that sometimes we don't always make. I knew that with my horse Lonan, so I shared my Mustang Lonan had some aggression issues, and when he came in, it was like he tore fence down. He was attacking all my horses, and he would attack me. And of course, like this negative energy was just building up. Like every time I looked at him, I thought not nice thoughts, and I was just so frustrated. But I also knew that in order for him and I to make progress, I had to change that. I couldn't see him as this problem horse, as this mean horse, as this. It's like I had to change my thoughts. And with my mare Pokey, who's over 30 now, and she still does experience some hindquarter weakness. When I look at Pokey, I don't look at Pokey as this old, fragile, sick horse that needs all this support. When I look at Pokey, I see a strong, vibrant, just survivor that just needs some extra support with her hindquarters. And I think that the mindset that I had was what pulled Pokey through, because I've worked with horse owners that the horse probably should have recovered. But when I was working, the horse owner was like, the horse isn't going to make it. They're never going to get better from this. This is it. And yet it was almost like, I thought to myself, I've helped many horses with this, but the horse wouldn't improve. And I started to notice how much the horse owner's mindset and energy around that horse is connected. So I loved that you put that post out there, because a lot of the times I think the horse owners get stuck in, well, my horse has this condition, so now my horse is this condition.
Absolutely.
And it's like, no, we don't want to view the horse that way. Your horse is a vibrant, healthy being that's in a disease state. Let's move it out of that disease state. So
yeah. And I just don't think we realize actually how, and it's sometimes the energy of our words. So it's back to energy again. So the horses pick up and so sensitive to our energy, and our words give out a certain, resonance and energy. And I see it so much with people that are talking around their horse all the time about selling their horse, and how that changes with the horse and what happens with the horse, and the horse then injures itself, does all this stuff because there's some energy going on that it's starting to feel a bit insecure. It doesn't know what's going on, and but it all comes from the thoughts and the words. And I've seen it a number of times now in my sessions how I didn't realize until it started coming up, like how sensitive they were to the words and the stories that people were telling about the horses. So yeah, very important.
Awesome. Well, there's a couple more comments here I just want to see, and then we'll get ready to close up. So Cindy's saying, is there something we could change about our approach to working with our horses that would benefit their minds?
So there's a lot of different things. So depending on, like if I touch on it now, let me know. Otherwise, if you're thinking something else, let me know. But There's a lot of things that we can do. First, the big one is managing our own energy, because obviously how we are is affecting our horses. Because we're talking about our own energy here. So if we're very anxious and we're not in the now and we're not present, our energy will hugely affect our horses when we go out there, because horses are very grounded and they're very much in the now. So if we come out there with all of our scattered energy, it does affect our horses, and we won't be able to connect with our horses in the way that we want. Or if we're just rushing out and we want to have this quick half an hour ride and then our horse doesn't do what we want, and it's because we're not really grounded and mindful of our horse in that time. So that's a really big thing, is just taking some time out, even if it's 10 minutes before you go out to your horse, and just have a feel in your own body what's going on for you. And if you are having a stressful day, it's okay, I think, to go out to your horse and say, look, I'm a bit stressed today, or I'm having a bad day, because at least then your energy is the same as what's going on in your body. I think horses get very confused by us if we have got so much going on with us, maybe grief or stress, or we've had a bad day, but we try and go out to our horses with a smile on our faces. And, so we're actually putting on a bit of a mask to what's going on with us to our horses, but our horses can read our energy. So that's kind of confusing energy for a horse. So it's much better to just go out there and go, look, I've had a really bad day today. Can you be a bit mindful of me? Or, just being honest. I think horses like honest energy, and incoherence, incongruence, is quite confusing for our horses. So I don't know if I just rambled on a bit there, but hopefully that makes sense.
I thought that was really helpful. And actually what's so interesting is nothing had really come up for me at first, but when you started saying that, for those who don't know, I adopted my Mustangs in order to push myself through a fear that had come up out of nowhere. So I trained horses throughout high school and into my early 20s, and then out of nowhere, actually before I had my son. So a lot of people think it's because I became a mother, but the fear actually came before I had my son. And this weird fear just came up for me around training horses and working untrained horses. So I did fine restarting horses or working with rehab horses, but I had this really weird fear around starting horses, and I tolerated it for a long time. And then a few years ago, I was like, that's enough. And I'm going to adopt these Mustangs and I'm going to train them. And so when I did that, of course, a lot of fear would arise. And so I had to do a lot of mental things. And Marshall accepts a lot more from me in me trying to mask it a little bit. Like, he's a little more gentle, where Lonan, and even with me starting him under saddle, is so quick. If I start being like, I'm not afraid right now, I'm okay, he gets so tense, he'll start getting bitey, he'll start like really just not being okay. And I'm like, oh, all right, it's totally me. So I have to ground, and I have to be like, and I will clear that energy with him, and I'll be like, I am afraid and I am scared to do this. And it's not that the being afraid is a problem. It's masking being afraid. That's the problem. And once I get aligned with what my energy actually is, and I kind of sit with it and breathe through it, it's like he helps me move through it. But if I'm just ignoring it, like, no, I'm just going to push through this, which is what us humans are really good at. I'm just going to push through. I'm okay. The horses will really butt up against this. So Nicole commented, so in knowing what I've learned, I would have emotion work done first, then progress to physical. Although they go hand in hand, I feel very much that the blocked emotions and emotional issues lead to a hardened physical state. Yes, I agree. And I'm sure Anna agrees on that. Yes, Nicole, very true. They do need to go hand in hand, because if a horse has a physical issue that was actually caused by something physical, it's good to work both, because you don't know if there was underlying emotion that caused the physical, or if now that the physical is there, like Pokey will have days where her hindquarters is a little more weak than others, and it affects her emotionally. She'll start to separate from the herd. She'll start to seem almost depressed. So I do a lot of emotional support for her along with the physical support, because it's like, it's hard for her. She knows she can't move away from them. As a prey animal, I'm sure it's very stressful to not be able to move the way that you should. So you really have to take into consideration, how are they feeling both physically and emotionally, and support both.
Absolutely.
All right, I think we're about done. Let's see, Cindy said that's fantastic. So I think that was very helpful for her. And then let's see, Jackie says, I have become aware that my horse responds to my thoughts. For instance, I will think when I get to see in a test, we need to change from a trot to a walk, and my horse changes to a walk as I'm thinking on my way before I get to see. Is this related in some way to what you're discussing about trauma? I think it's related to the emotions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and to energy. So it's related to exactly what we were saying about our thoughts affecting our energy. So, and our horses, because they don't talk to each other, they just go on energy. So I think probably as you're thinking, oh, as I'm going to get to see, I'm going to go into a trot, probably your body's starting to relax at that time, you know, and your horse is sensing not just your thoughts, but how your body's reacting to your thoughts. So I'd say that's what's going on. Yeah,
that's exactly what's going on.
So it's like they're telepathic, really.
Yeah. And I have that a lot, where people will watch me work my horses, and I've never thought about it much, because I don't know why. I've always just thought it's normal. So when someone told me it wasn't normal for horses to read my thoughts or respond to my thoughts, I just thought they were an idiot. I'll be honest. I just had that from a very young age, where I thought, well, I know my horse knows my thoughts. And when I work my horses, a lot of people will be like, I never saw. So when you see a trainer and you never saw them give a cue, that's why. So when my horse, even on the ground, so this is not a body cue, this is working either at liberty or just on the ground, I will pick up my energy internally. I haven't changed my body stature at all. So most people think I haven't changed, but I will lift my energy into what I call my trotting energy, and my horse will start trotting, or I'll lift it to my canter energy and my horse will start cantering. And people are like, you didn't change anything. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did. Like, it's all about energy. But the more you tune into that energy, your horses are already there. So horses don't really need trained. It's the humans that need to be trained to get on that level with their horse, because their horse is already at that level. Yeah. But yes, Jackie, that's spot on there. All right, so I think that's about it. Eileen shared, when my father died, I wanted to be alone, so I went to the barn. None of the horses were in the barn. I sat there crying and grieving for quite a while. When I finally looked up, was it going to let me see more? Hang on. Yeah, both horses were standing in front of me with their heads hanging down. They stayed with me, not moving, for quite some time. It was so moving. I realized that day how connected they were to me. You're going to make me cry, Eileen. But yes, horses are amazing.
They are.
Thank you for sharing that, Eileen. That's beautiful.
It's lovely.
And Lynn just shared, this is awesome, reinforces what I believe about how emotions and horses or any animal go hand in hand. Yes, Lynn. So thank you so much, Anna. You guys go over and like.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. And Barb over here on Zoom says, this is so amazing. Looking forward to October. Yes, Barbara, it's going to be awesome. Before I hop off, let me get, I'm going to get Anna's Facebook page here in the comments so that I don't space it. So you guys go over and like Anna's Facebook page so that you have her kind of at your fingertips. And if any questions come up for you after this, definitely message her and connect with her. And of course, you can work with Anna one-on-one. So thank you so much, Anna, for.
Thanks. Nice to meet you all.
And I will talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Angie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.